So, yeah, I guess I wanted to share an experience, my own personal experience growing up. Maybe some of you can relate to it, and then I'll try to relate it to a concept or principle that's applicable for spiritual realization. So when I was growing up, I bet most of you have also had the experience that naturally when people get together, especially young people, we tend to form a clique, right? You know, people become friends, and then they start to share certain things, right? People start to talk a certain way, they start to dress a certain way, and other people kind of pick it up, you know. But I guess when you're younger, it's kind of funnier. It's a little more exaggerated. Like I don't know, when I was in school, like it got ridiculous, you know. Like I don't know, 6th grade, then persons were wearing certain kind of coats. It was like a basketball, like jersey kind of thing, and you know, a few people got them. And it was like, oh, those are nice, you know. More people got them. Pretty soon, like it was like a whole trend, you know, like. So we can see these kind of things happening when people get together. So I guess the topic for tonight kind of is social psychology, kind of how we think and how we kind of influence each other in a social setting. So when I personally was young, I was really into a band, a heavy metal band, and I actually got a really nice shirt from a concert that I had been to. And my friend also, later he went to a concert. He got the same shirt, and we're like, oh, this is great, you know. So we kind of felt a kinship based upon, simple thing, but actually everyone kind of goes through these things. So in that same crowd, I think like a younger kind of friend, he started coming and he saw, this shirt, and he was like, oh, those are cool, like I gotta get one. And, after some time, like the way that we dressed, the way that we spoke, the younger person in the group, he also started to speak and dress like that, right? So does anyone have like experience of this? You know what I'm saying? So we can notice these things, and it's pretty important to kind of realize how much we do affect and how much we do set a status quo for others by the way we dress, the way we speak. But more so, what I wanted to talk about was more so how we develop those cliques or those associations, and what kind of conversations or words are being spoken. So this is actually really funny. We all know that there's different places you can go for different activities, right? You know, if you go to the Krishna lounge, then, there's going to be some chanting, there's going to be a talk, and so on and so forth. If you go to the bar, there's going to be sports. People might be talking about sports, or, if girls get their nails done here, and then, they're talking, it's like on the phone and doing all kinds. So everyone has their own clique, their own association, and they talk about certain things, right? So those things can be summed up in 2 categories. So this is the lesson for tonight. 2 categories of things which we talk about in different associations. One we'll put under the category of worldly or mundane. And worldly or mundane talk or conversation, it's pretty much the things of this world that you can see, touch, taste, feel. It's the external world and how it acts and how it interacts. So we can call this mundane or worldly knowledge. Mostly it's knowledge about the external world, which is always changing. And then there's category number 2. We can call this the transcendental subject matter. And transcendental sounds, like a very far out word, like, whoa, transcendental meditation, it's like, oh, it's so mystical, but actually the word transcendental means to go beyond the boundary, right? So really, if you look at, transcendence by definition, it means like, oh, I transcended, a certain boundary or a certain sphere. So there's two kind of vibrations or talks or discussions. Before I kind of explain that, I want to explain a little about the power of sound or sound vibration. So in order to understand why there's these two categories and why we should kind of be aware of it, we should try to understand what is the sound. So it's actually, we don't really think about it, but sound creates destiny. Sound creates our destiny. And we in modern times, it's such a subtle thing that we're not able to directly perceive that. But a matter of fact, we can see how sound is the basis or the beginning for things which happen in the physical world or the physical mundane world. Just like most people, before you actually do something, you talk about it, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to Krishna Lounge tonight. Oh, really? You're going to Krishna Lounge? Okay, da-da-da. And from there, that sound enters the mind and generates so many inspirations to actually perform an action or an activity. So we have to understand that the associations that we enter into, the cliques that we enter into, there's a certain kind of talk, and that certain kind of talk will inspire and motivate us to do certain things. Right? Follow me so far? So sound creates destiny, and in the ancient yoga text, for example, the Srimad Bhagavatam, it discusses how the whole physical or universe, the physical universe is actually began from sound. So it's stated there that Om is the beginning, the sound Om, but from sound everything else is kind of manifested. So sound really has a lot of power, and we know about the power of suggestion, right? So if you're hanging around with, let's say, your sangha or your associate, we're talking about association. So your association is really down and really, so person is feeling miserable. So you're talking with them, and sometimes, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, you talk with somebody who's feeling miserable, you kind of walk away, you start feeling miserable too. You're like, God, this world is pretty bad, Or, right? Or you hear someone that's so positive, like, how are you? I'm great. I feel great. I love life. I love the world. I love you. I love everyone. And you walk away and you're like, God, I feel great. That person, they instill that vision into you by their own action. So there's two kinds. There's talks which are kind of uplifting and talks that kind of bring you down. But I would place both those into the mundane category, because we are talking about the external worlds, the external world of matter and things like this. So in the Bhagavatam, it gives two very nice examples of the two different kinds of sound. One sound is called, we term spiritual sound vibration, and one's material sound. So that's the mundane and the transcendent. And for the example, they give the example, the crows are a kind of bird which flock together, right? So this bird flocks together, and there's a certain kind of nature. So the crow likes dirty things. The crow, they pick garbage. They're very intelligent. They make a loud sound. Sometimes they're sitting out the window and making so much noise.
Generally, no one wants them around.
And nobody wants them around. And they're attracted to dirty things, like they hang out in junkyard or whatever. Then the other example is the swans. The swans is a very, very elegant bird, and it's on crystal clear legs. It likes clean places. It flocks with others. They move in a very graceful way, and they take pleasure in a beautiful environment. So this example is given to kind of illustrate the difference between a an association of people which are discussing the spiritual vibration, an association of people who are propagating or discussing material vibration. So the second thing we have to know about sound is that every time we speak, we're actually propagating a philosophy or an idea. People don't think like that. They go, oh, that's just my opinion. But even just speaking, you influence all kinds of people around you, because that is the power of sound. It creates inspiration to act. So we have this power of speaking, and this power of speaking is a very, very powerful tool, and we can use this power of speaking to uplift ourselves, and we can uplift others, or we can use it to bring ourselves down, and we can use it to bring others down. So it's a very powerful tool, and when used properly, we can bring others to a state of happiness, and ourselves as well. The state of happiness, and I'll end here, is we cannot be, we will never find real satisfaction speaking about the worldly subject matters. Why? Because there's so many limitations. There's a lot of limitations, and pretty much when we talk about worldly stuff, we're talking about finite, measurable, limited things. The reason why that does not give us satisfaction is because if we analyze our nature, we are actually quite different. We don't want anything limited. We want an unlimited supply of a good thing. In other words, we want happiness, but nobody's like, oh, I want this limited amount of happiness. No, we want unlimited happiness. So our real nature is that we want something unlimited, we want something unending, and we want it to be pleasurable or blissful or happy. So when we discuss things we get too absorbed in the things of this world, we will start feeling miserable, because we're like out of our real environment, which is to grow, to be happy, to feel a sense of security. There's no security in the external world. There's an earthquake today, there's a hurricane tomorrow. People are dropping bombs next month. So we never know, right? So when we place all of our happiness and expectation in the external world, and we talk about it, then what we're propagating to others in our association or clique is that the external world is important, and we have to invest everything in it, and we have to make sure that our arrangement is nice. And that brings misery. Why? Because the external world is not a very secure place. So we have to find our security and our happiness on a higher platform. And that platform is through what we call transcendental knowledge. Knowledge which pushes or exceeds the boundary of material energy, or the external material world, or the mundane world around us. And what is that which pushes the boundary that we are? It's discussing what is really important. And what is really important is consciousness, is the self, understanding who we are in this world, and what is our purpose, what is the destination of each and every one of us, and how we can make tangible progress to help ourselves along that path and to help others. If we're thinking in this way, then we will naturally always be speaking in a way that's uplifting people to that platform. And so therefore we have the power of speech, and we should be very cautious, because just like, when I was wearing, a certain kind of attire, then other people are like, oh, I want. So we actually we influence people whether we like it or not. But the key is to influence. We can use our power of influence for the good, for the greater good. So that's all I had to say, to share. Thank you very much for your attention. Anyone like to say anything? you have anything or question?
There's a saying that opposites attract, so maybe you could expand on that?
Opposites attract. In what way? In what relation to the topic, I guess?
Well, you were saying how like attracts, like, like birds of feather flock together, right? There's that saying. But then there's another saying, the opposites attract. And when you do look at couples, a lot of times they're very different.
Yes.
And yet those differences attract them together. So it doesn't seem like alike always attracts alike.
It doesn't always seem like that, but I guess I would say that there is some kind of shared activity or goal in each association. So that's there may be very different kind of people, but there is something which draws people together. I know.
Yeah, they have to complement each other towards the same goal.
Otherwise, they won't stay a group. And I know just my participation in spiritual culture, staying in the temple, that this is one of the most diverse group of peoples I've ever associated, to say the least. And the thing is so amazing about my experience is how many diverse peoples are able to find a central unifying point. So opposites do attract, but yes, like Prabhu was saying, there should be something which binds them, some common goal, and then all the other contradictory qualities actually become complementary.
These contradictory qualities or opposites, they have to complement each other in such a way that brings the two together towards the same goal. Otherwise, there's no attraction.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tension.
Yeah.
So your presentations are?
All right.